Hello, I'm David Harper with the BBC News. The British Foreign Secretary has said Russian forces must be pushed out of the whole of Ukraine, in the clearest indication yet of the UK's aims for the conflict. In a speech in London, Liz Truss described a victory for Ukraine as a strategic imperative for the West, arguing that it must use its economic strength to deter future Russian aggression.
The G7 should act as an economic NATO, collectively defending our prosperity. If the economy of a partner is being targeted by an aggressive regime, we should act to support them. All for one and one for all.
The BBC's diplomatic correspondent says not all Western powers may share Ms Truss's ambitious target, which implies that Russian forces must even leave areas they occupied 8 years ago, including Crimea. The United States has accused Russia of weaponizing energy by cutting off gas supplies to Poland and Bulgaria. The White House spokesperson Jen Psaki told reporters the US was working with European countries on how to replace their reliance on Russian energy.
Unfortunately, this is the type of step, the type of almost weaponizing energy supplies that we had predicted that Russia could take in this conflict. I would note that last month, in advance of this, the President launched a task force with the EU to target additional LNG volumes for Europe, including Poland and Bulgaria. This will help replace, over time, Russian gas to Europe, decreasing Europe's dependence on Russia and Putin's ability to use energy to coerce Europe.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said Russia's actions showed Europe could not expect any normal cooperation with Moscow. The European Union told Moscow it would not give in to blackmail over gas. An investigation by the US state of Minnesota following the police killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis in 2020 has found that the city's police has engaged in a pattern of race discrimination for at least the past decade. Our North America correspondent Peter Bowes reports.
The analysis of police reports, interviews and body camera footage revealed what investigators said were wide disparities between the treatment of people of colour and white individuals. For example, while African Americans make up only 19% of the population of Minneapolis, they represented 54% of all traffic stops between 2017 and 2020. The report blames a paramilitary approach to policing and a culture that's ineffective at holding officers accountable for misconduct.
The Nigerian Senate has passed a bill imposing jail terms of at least 15 years on anyone paying a ransom to free someone who has been kidnapped. Critics say the move is unfair as it criminalises people who are desperate to free their relatives. The new law will also provide the death penalty or life in prison for anyone found guilty of kidnapping. You're listening to the latest world news from the BBC. The Electoral Court in Mexico has said that a vote in April on whether to remove the president halfway through his term in office is invalid because not enough people cast their ballots. President Andrés Manuel López Obrador had himself proposed the vote as a means of strengthening his mandate for his remaining 3 years. He won 90% of the vote, but less than 18% of the electorate took part in the process. Trade unions in Sri Lanka have called for a nationwide strike today to increase pressure on the government of President Rajapaksa to resign amid an unprecedented economic crisis. Transport, health and banking services are expected to be hit by the industrial action. Ambarasan Etirajan reports.
The day-long strike by Sri Lanka's trade unions will add pressure on President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and his government, which is struggling to pay for imports. Thousands of people have been protesting for several weeks against the worsening shortage of basic supplies, including fuel and food. Due to the shortage, prices of essential commodities have spiked. The government says it has initiated a series of steps to revive the economy, including a request for a bailout from the IMF. President Rajapaksa has rejected calls for his resignation.
Facebook's owner Meta has posted its slowest revenue growth in a decade. In the first 3 months of the year, revenues were up just 7% compared to last year. The company, which also owns Instagram and WhatsApp, has warned of a difficult advertising market in the year ahead. A SpaceX Dragon capsule carrying 4 NASA astronauts has docked with the International Space Station 15 hours after launch. It's the first NASA crew comprised equally of men and women. SpaceX has now launched 5 crews for NASA to the ISS. Earlier this week, 3 private businessmen returned from the space station after paying more than $50 million each for the trip. Live from London, that's the latest BBC News.